Let's do it. Let's talk about competitive Warhammer. The idea and concept of competitive Warhammer has always felt like kind of a touchy subject, and if you've been into the hobby as long as I have, or for any amount of time really, then you have definitely heard terms like beardy, cheesy, meta-chasing, and of course the ever-present that guy, which all kind of refer to the same thing, which is a person who plays Warhammer and builds lists with the intention of beating their opponent. And I'm sure we all have stories about that guy. Even me, who hasn't been in the regular Warhammer gaming scene for years and years, I remember turning up to my local with my ragtag army of orcs and being completely wiped off the table in just 10 minutes in what was supposed to be a fun game. And whilst I do try most of the time to avoid touchy subjects on my channel, because if I'm being perfectly honest, the internet scares me and I am an emotionally fragile person, I do actually want to talk about competitive Warhammer for a while, but more specifically, its player base. But in particular, I want to talk about the competitive Age of Sigmar community, because I have just come back from one of the biggest events in the Warhammer calendar, the Age of Sigmar Worlds Team Championship. And I've just gotten back and I'm really tired and I think I'm a bit overwhelmed by the whole thing, but I just want to, no, I needed to make a video about the entire experience, because I think I got to do something which not a lot of other people who, like me, play Warhammer very casually get to do, and find out what it's like to spend a whole week trapped in a hotel with hundreds of competitive Warhammer players from all over the world who are all battling it out with each other to be crowned the best at Warhammer Age of Sigmar. And in this video, I'm going to show you what it was actually like to be there, and what it looks like when over 200 players from over 26 countries come together to play Warhammer, and who eventually came out on top. And hopefully you'll be able to see for yourself if this was just the annual global meeting of a community full of unfun beardy that guys, or if it was something else entirely. Whoosh. So first of all, you may be wondering, what is the Age of Sigmar Worlds Team Championship? Well, it's a yearly competitive Age of Sigmar tournament held over 5 days, which includes both a single player tournament and a big team tournament, where teams of 8 players from all over the world come together to play Age of Sigmar in the hopes of being crowned the best team in the world. Before the main event, the national pairings are decided by rolling dice with various flags on them, and after that, the teams play against each other in 11 games over 3 days until a winner is decided by the amount of points scored across all games. The current champions and the ones to beat this year are Team Denmark, who have already won the Age of Sigmar Worlds Team Championship 2 years in a row. Now that you kind of know what the event is and what I'm getting myself into, let me take you on a journey to the Age of Sigmar Worlds Championship 2024. This year and the year before that, the event has been held in the Netherlands, and it's been hosted by Tom from the Alliance Open Gaming Group. And I just want to quickly shout out Tom here, because he's just awesome, we all love him, and he's a wonderful guy, a credit to the Age of Sigmar community, and is generally just an S-tier cutie pie, so a massive shout out to him and a big well done to Tom and his team for just giving everyone the most amazing time. Anyways, the event space was held in this massive hotel just outside of Amsterdam, and it's amazing and huge and felt like it was a great place to come for an awesome holiday if you don't have 11 games of Warhammer to play or an entire live stream to set up. But either way, we had turned up on Monday to set up our cameras and get settled into our rooms, and by Tuesday, so had hundreds of Warhammer players from every corner of the globe. And before anything had even started at the the event, the vibe coming from all the players just arriving was really, really awesome. It just seemed like everyone was so excited to see their friends for the first time in what probably felt like ages. And from what I could tell, from being like off to one side in my unbiased high tower, there wasn't really any like side-eyeing of the other teams and teams being like, oh, we don't talk to them, they're our competitors, or anything like that. Everyone just seemed genuinely really happy and excited to see everyone that had turned up. And I don't know if that's like weird or rare for these kind of events, because I'm not a very sporty person and I've not been to a lot of big competitions with lots of teams and stuff like that. But yeah, the vibes right from the start were really good. Great, in fact. So you may be wondering, if I wasn't there to play games of Age of Sigmar, what was I doing there? What was my purpose? Well, a bunch of us had gotten invited over by Tom to kind of do coverage of the competition. So I went along with Rob and his team, and under his very professional tutelage, we were tasked with doing live coverage of the whole event. This meant things like commentating on games, roaming cameras, in-field reporting and interviews, and most importantly, live coverage of the top tables so everyone at home could also tune in and enjoy the games. But I was there to do another job entirely, and that was to be the judge of the event's prestigious painting competition. I think a lot of people assume that these tournament players either play with poorly painted armies or entirely grey plastic miniatures, because they're so busy chasing the current meta or changing their lists entirely to match what's currently good that they couldn't possibly have time to spend the amount of time and effort painting their minis as us narrative players do with our armies that we've collected for years and years. But having attended tens if not dozens of smaller competitive events, and now one of the biggest ones in the world, I can confidently say, as a professional miniature painter, that I just don't think that's true. That's not what I saw this weekend at all. I judged the singles category on the very first day, and then the teams event on the Saturday, which meant I got to walk around and look at hundreds and hundreds of armies and pick just 6 to 8 runners up and just one to be the winner, which was extremely difficult because they were all so good. And if you needed any more evidence as to how much hobby effort and love these guys put into their competitive gaming pieces, then take a look at these pairing cards made by Lex from the Dutch team. The pairing cards are usually just a picture of a faction on a bit of paper, but he made entire box dioramas for each faction, which is absolutely insane and incredible, and they were just beautiful. Anyways, back to the painting competition. I saw so many beautiful armies and a seemingly really balanced variation of factions on display. The paint jobs were not at all rushed, and they were on the contrary of super high quality with thoughtful conversions, imaginative and original themes, and most importantly, a really obvious demonstration of time, love, effort, and an appreciation of the lore which maybe you'd expect from more narrative players. And there wasn't a single grey army at any of the tables. After the votes were counted and I had picked this incredible non-metallic Seraphon army as the winner of the team's painting competition, I handed out the awards to the winners, and I also had to stand on stage and be very nervous, but whatever, it was really awesome and super fun despite my anxiety. After that, the 2-day single event was over, and the singles event was kind of described to me as the pre-party, the fun bit, and the more relaxed part of the tournament. But now it was time for the big one, the main event, and the reason that hundreds of people had gathered from across the globe. It was time for the teams event. I think it's fair to say that apart from the partying and the nice hotel with the Nutella and hot chocomel machine included with the price of staying there, the teams event is the main reason why people turn up to AoS Worlds. And at first, if I'm being honest, I wasn't entirely sure how this kind of sportiness would work with Warhammer, but now that I've seen it in real life, I think that I absolutely love it because it's just so funny and hilarious for both the players and the people people watching. I'm not big into sports, and especially not things like football, but things like the World Cup and the Olympics are always quite funny for a similar reason I liked this kind of Worlds format. The international banter you get, and just the sheer amount of joy which the teams have coming over, and them being excited and proud to represent their countries with all their little national quirks, differences, and their super stylish jerseys and little team mascots as well, is just adorable. I love it. The current champions, the team from Denmark, are one of my favourites because of just how much and how openly their country seems to love and support their Age of Sigmar team. They make it onto the morning news, they have a cool band as a sponsor for their team, and they even came over with their own nutritionist, who is lovely by the way, and who provided the whole team with water, nutritious snacks, and a lot of bananas. And maybe at this point you're at home sitting there thinking, wow, these people are taking Warhammer. Yes, the silly dragon elf miniature fantasy game Warhammer extremely seriously. Well, yes, they are, but I think more so they're taking coming to this event and representing their country and their team seriously. And seriously is a word I'm going to use extremely loosely here for most of them, because from what I could tell, they just love it, and look at how much fun they're having doing it too. They're just straight up vibing and having a great time. It's awesome to see. But I think it's important at this point to make it very clear that I am, and believe me, I hate this word, and I think people that use it unironically are but I am a bit of a tourist here. Let me explain though, because tourist. I wasn't playing any games at all over the weekend, and I was just doing my best to kind of keep my head down, and I especially didn't want to interrupt the players' very important games with my annoying, whimsy, and tiny camera. And if I'm being brutally honest here, even though I have a ton of friends who are in the community and I attend a load of events, I do not think I qualify as being a part of the Age of Sigmar gaming community. I was just there to kind of watch and get an idea for the vibe so that I could share it with you, because I assume that just like me, this probably isn't something you've ever experienced before, and maybe also like me, you're a little bit curious too. But I think I can tell you fairly confidently, having wandered around hundreds of players playing Warhammer for 5 days, that it genuinely seemed like everyone was having a great time. I've had a lot of thoughts about competitive Warhammer, both whilst I was at the event and since I've come back. And whilst I was there, I even decided that I would ask all of you some of your opinions on what you think about the idea of competitive Warhammer as a whole. And oh boy, did you have some opinions. I'm happy to say that most people were really positive and level-headed about the whole thing, either saying that they don't personally want to play the game that way, but they have no issue with how other people want to enjoy their hobby, or saying that they'd maybe like to try it out sometime, but they're not really sure how, or if they're good enough to join a team or try to dip their toes into that kind of event. This attitude of let people enjoy their hobby the way they want to is kind of my opinion on the whole tournament competitive scene. I, for example, wouldn't wander into Golden Demon and tell off the top performing artists for trying too hard and making all of us less good painters feel bad with their incredible painting. But whilst that's a nice little analogy for maybe getting over the initial hump of people who try hard to win things, it doesn't quite work out, because gaming is very different from painting alone in your room. Gaming requires 2 people to turn up and have fun playing a game, and that means that both the people are kind of responsible for making that happen, somehow. You may run into an issue at your local gaming store when you turn up with your cute little starter set Stormcast army, because you just love the minis and you think Stormcast lore is amazing, and you've read all the books and you've painted your favorite miniatures and you've scraped a list together, and you just want to play a fun, casual game and make silly noises when you move your miniatures. That's me, I'm that guy. But you've arranged a game with someone who seemed really friendly and enthusiastic to play against you, but they're someone who loves the rules and the gameplay, and they tailor their lists accordingly so that they can push themselves to be a better player, and that's how they play and that's how they enjoy their hobby, which is okay and valid. be nice. So whilst you're both there to have fun, due to miscommunication or just the fact that you enjoy the hobby in two different ways, you probably walk away having lost quite badly, and you feel downtrodden and like you ran into someone who tries too hard and doesn't really care about Warhammer or the lore, and who just wants to see you eat cold, gritty Warhammer table dirt. The pre-arranged social construct of let's both have a good game is thoroughly broken because you both played the game for a different outcome, and with one being labelled as the one who tried too hard to win, a clear image of who the bad guy is in the situation is solidified in your head. And of course this scenario does not include or defend just the straight up bad winners, sore losers, and those people who just stomp on the little guy at locals as a weird power play. Trust me, as someone who has seen both sides of the fence now, that kind of person isn't welcome anywhere, even at the top tables where every single roll matters. But in a tournament setting, if everything goes according to plan, this imbalance of intention is kind of ironed out before the game even begins. You can just play a game and do your best to win, but also have fun and sort of relax a little bit at the same time, knowing that your opponent is doing the same thing and thinking the same thing too. Apart from that, the only other complaint I saw about competitive Warhammer is that apparently Games Workshop and their rules team focus on it too much, and the more narrative players wish this wasn't the case. And this is something that could very well be true, but I fully admit I don't know a lot about this subject, but I can see how it would be cause for concern for some. So good luck, narrative players, fighting the good fight against the Games Workshop rule team. I hope you win. Also, I had loads and loads of messages saying that apparently the 40k scene is way worse than the Age of Sigmar one, with loads of toxic players and stuff like that. But again, I don't really have an opinion on that because I've only ever been to Age of Sigmar tournaments, so feel free to politely and respectfully discuss the subject with your fellow Warhammer fans in the comments section. Politely. But the one kind of message that I got which I was in strong disagreement about were people saying that all competitive Warhammer players are unfun tryhards, because that's just not what I've experienced, and I have video evidence. People were at their tables caring deeply about their games, and yes, taking their decisions and tactics and roles very seriously, but they were laughing and smiling and going through the motions as they did it, celebrating their victories and showing frustration at their mishaps, but also I saw players celebrating their opponents' victories, and importantly, not delighting and rejoicing in their opponents' failures or losses. When a game finished, it was always with a handshake and a hug, and a huge wave of support from their fellow team members, coaches, and even their opponent's team, despite the outcome of their games. But whilst the camaraderie and general goodwill of each of the teams there was inspirational and extremely common, like I have so many videos of men hugging and kissing, oh my god, make absolutely no mistake that the players here were trying their very best and playing their very hardest. And at the end of the day, we have to remember that this was a tournament, which meant only one team could win and take home the glory for their country. The final round of the tournament was on Sunday, and it was a matchup between two Age of Sigmar super forces, the formidable French team and the previous champions of the past 2 years running, Denmark. And I've got to admit that the tension at the tables did feel pretty real. During the 3 hours across the 8 tables playing, it looked like France had it in the bag, and I was ready to start buttering up the victory baguettes until this happened. Denmark had once again won the event, cementing them as the world champions for the 3rd year in a row. And as you can see, they were absolutely over the moon. And maybe to my surprise, so was everyone else. I've been to a lot of gigs and festivals and I guess parties in my time, but I don't think anything I have ever attended has come close to the way that room full of Age of Sigmar players lit up when the event was finally over. The whole room came alive with cheering and jumping and even more hugging, and all of the teams were trading dice and jerseys so quickly that it was kind of no longer possible to keep track of who belonged to which nation. People were clamoring to buy their favorite opponent a drink and get a bunch of pictures with their friends, and it genuinely just felt like a huge, extremely loud, overwhelmingly positive party. I mean, listen to these maniacs.
Hey, Scandinavia, turn it down, get a room. Well done.
And this isn't a dig or anything, I promise, but it makes me wonder why Games Workshop, the company who makes this game, hasn't managed to capture and report on this kind of extreme hype and positive vibe in any of their coverage of their fests or events or in any of their videos or anything I've seen really. Like, I'd have never known that this community of frighteningly positive, loud and insanely passionate players existed unless I had left the company and come to this very unlikely event. And this kind of place and these kind of people feel like the perfect way to promote their games and their products, especially as the new edition of the game launches. And if I was them, I would have given anything to have been there in that room with a camera, doing what I'm trying to do here and show you just how amazing and incredible this game and its community can really be. So is competitive Warhammer as bad and as scary as a lot of people make it out to be? Well, I don't know for sure because I wasn't at the tables and I didn't play any games, and if I was and I had, maybe I would have more to say on the subject. But what I can say for sure is that the huge amount of competitive players who I met, watched, spoke with and hung out with all seem to be genuinely lovely, enthusiastic people. And I'm not just saying that to make this a happy ending kind of video, I just honestly really had the best time. And this wasn't even a one-off, because every time I interact with competitive Age of Sigmar players, they're always so welcoming and kind, and I leave feeling like I've made some more friends. So I think it's safe to assume that a lot of the players last weekend left their tables feeling the same way regardless of how their games went. Because as a wise man once told us, it's better to make 5 friends than go 5-0. But for now, I'm afraid that is all we have time for. Thank you so much for watching this video, I really hope you enjoyed it, and as usual, thank you for being rogues. I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Bye friends! Bye bye!